the crypto game 40, the big 40, and there's nobody else that I'd rather have on than Captain Winston. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic, Ben. Thanks so much for having me.
Dude, the reason I say Captain Winston is because we just spoke a little bit beforehand about you being a surfer out in the water, trying to make that connection here. But really, you are the the co-founder of WeMeta, a total badass. I would love to really jump into your story and understand like who you are as a person, how you got into crypto, and how you became the person that you are today in the space.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I'll give you the what I tell VCs. And so I dropped out of college to do a real estate startup. I was going to the University of Arkansas, did an internship in commercial real estate in London, and thought I understood the entire world. And so I went back to Arkansas, and I'm like, I'm spending a lot of time looking at real estate deals on my cell phone. Why aren't we buying and selling houses on our cell phones? So me being the genius that I am, I just decided, let's move out to California and see how it goes. And turns out when I got there, there's already somebody doing it. And so there's this company called Really, Reali. And I guess I've become one of their advocates, which is interesting. But they just raised 20 mil to do the exact same idea. And so I was kind of defeated and just decided to sell houses in the SF Bay area for a little while. I was thinking about being a mortgage broker as well, but I failed the exam twice, passed it on the third time. And so I also, real estate agents take a higher commission. That was something I realized after I failed it the second time. I'm like, why am I doing this? Real estate agents make more money. And so I just sold houses in the SF Bay area for a couple of years, mostly focused in the Tri-Valley, if anybody's familiar with the area. And I was really dissatisfied with the lack of data that I was able to give my customers. I went into the area as a new agent. I was dealing with buyers, not sellers. I worked with a few sellers, but primarily it was buyers. And so these are people who are coming into the area, looking around and going, holy shit, it's $700,000 for a condo. Why? And they're asking me. And I say, I can give you 3 years of historical data to prove that now is the right time to buy. And that, it just felt so disingenuous. And I try to be a genuine person and say whatever's on my mind and just be honest and straightforward. And it felt like I wasn't scamming them, because I was giving them the truth, but it was a very shortened, contextualized version of the truth. And people who are coming into the area, they're used to say spending, $300,000, $400,000 for a 2-story bedroom house or 2-bedroom, or I guess 2-story 4-bed house in most areas. Right now, those are probably like 5-6 with all this recent fun inflation, right? But 5-6 years ago, they were only $300,000, $400,000. And they're coming in and they want to buy a studio apartment and it's the same price. And so it just felt terrible. And so I started scraping my own website, started scraping Zillow, started pulling data from other websites. That's how I learned how to code. And so I was always been a knack for data. And my brother came to visit. He was getting his master's in statistics at UNC. So you can see kind of the difference in mentalities there. And he pointed out, you're doing interesting stuff, but it's never going to scale. You need to go learn how to do it properly. And so I went to Galvanize in SF to learn data science. Almost failed out of that. Like I said, never been one for, in school, I'm always like, what's the minimum amount I can do to keep everybody happy and then just keep going. And so I almost failed out twice, but I really stuck with it, enjoyed it. And a few people there liked me, and they gave me the opportunity to teach afterwards. And so I started teaching data science, and that's really how I learned it. And so I'd, show up, review it beforehand, and then just walk a class of, 30 to 60 people through it. And that actually went reasonably well. And so I was collating a workshop with somebody from NVIDIA, and they talked about Rapids, which is this big data warehousing solution. And all I knew was that it turned the query from, this couple million row query, it took from like 5 minutes to 5 seconds. I'm like, I got to get on it. It was insane. I remember I showed it to somebody when I first started working on it. And I think we queried like 25 gigabytes. And they'd been working on distributed systems for like 15 years. And their jaw dropped. And that was like the first time I've seen somebody actual, like, you hear like, oh, his jaw actually dropped. And it was incredible.
You're like, are we in freaking Tom and Jerry right now?
Yeah, it was almost like a cartoon. Yeah. Because you could kind of see it, and he's like, this guy shitting me? What? And so it was phenomenal. And so after that, it's like I have to stay involved in this, and so I started writing about it. And I got picked up by a startup in the space, BlazingSQL. They were killers, honestly. Those are some of the smartest people I've ever worked with. They figured out how to make data frames on GPUs like work, and actually work well, and so that you could query them. And so I was a data scientist at BlazingSQL for a while, and then over COVID, Coding Dojo reached out to me and saw that I had a decent background in data science education. They were starting up their data science program, and they needed somebody to lead it. And so they reached out to me. I gave them a ridiculous number. They said yes, which is kind of crazy. And so I went there and did that during COVID. And then I was working terrible hours. So I couldn't stay in San Francisco anymore. And so I moved to Las Vegas on a whim right after Thanksgiving of 2020, maybe. And I made a few friends, and this guy offered to lease me a room and his shed. And so I made the shed. The shed is legendary. We're going to get to the shed, trust. But so I did most of my time in the shed, and I made that my office, and that was kind of like my go-to. And I was teaching this class every night because my students were in Saudi Arabia from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. And then there's this great place in Las Vegas to go snowboarding, Lee Canyon. And so I would teach from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. and then drive to Lee Canyon, snowboard, then come back home, go to sleep, wake up, repeat. And I did that, 5-6 days a week for a few months. And it was all right, but there was some people nipping away at me, like, get into crypto, do data science in crypto. Don't do data. Those people do data science with us in crypto. And so, in March of 2021, I said, screw it, quit my job, spent like 2 weeks snowboarding around Utah. I went to Reno. I went to, a few other places. Took a few weeks off, just snowboarded for a little while, and then went back to the shed and said, you know what, I'm going to learn crypto. I started doing, I did spring 2020 was my first one. Came up with it's really basic now looking back on it, but it was a way for buyers and sellers to submit real estate offers on chain. And so, went through a series of these and over several months and learned JavaScript. I've always worked with data science background, so I know Python, R, basic stuff. But came across this team at Web3 Weekend. And the original idea was like, let's have a place where you can see Decentraland, CryptoVoxel, Somnium Space, Sandbox, all in one interface with a, and it'd be cool if we had foot traffic. And at this point, what is the metaverse, right? And this is
right.
This is Web3 Weekend 2021. So this is May 2021. Nobody's talking about the metaverse. I remember I jumped into Decentraland and I'm like, this thing doesn't even work. And then Brennan was like, you have to try CryptoVoxels. You can do it on your cell phone. So I tried CryptoVoxels and it was great. I liked it a little bit more. But since then the games have developed so much and there's been a lot built and there's been obviously an incredible amount of hype. And so we won that hackathon Web3 Weekend. And then from there, it's just been it's been a whirlwind, but especially the last couple of months, but turned it into a company. And so now we have WeMeta, and our goal is to be like this market and data layer of the metaverse. And so we have a marketplace aggregator that just pulls listings from Decentraland Marketplace, OpenSea, Sandbox, whatever marketplace you have that's listing metaverse land, you can buy, sell, and bid on it on WeMeta. But what makes us really fun is that we have the best data and insights to help you make those purchases. And this kind of, I guess, goes back to my real estate background, where it's like, how do I help people understand what the hell is going on? And how do I give the info they need to make informed decisions and informed purchases? And then that raises the question of, well, what do they want to do? So do they want to be in this play thing? Do they want to be more like a real life metaverse? We've decided that's not really our problem. Our problem is to give people the information they need to make decisions. And so that's what we're focused on right now. I guess that's my intro. What do you think?
I love it. I dig it. I really want to dig into this idea of virtual real estate. And, that was one of the, one of the things that I think is going to be such a big part of the future of the metaverse that we don't really understand, right? So, from your perspective, like maybe you could just give a 30,000 foot view of what is virtual real estate even, and why is it valuable? Because if you think of like, okay, there's a trillion by trillion pixel uh, environment, like why does this one 16 by 16 plot of virtual land, or like these pixels, why does that have more value than a different one? I have my own theories and ideas of why, but I would love to hear it from you. Like, what makes it valuable, and like, what is it really?
Yeah. So to me, it's an access point. And what you do with that access point is up to you. And what works at that access point is still being figured out. And that's, I guess we can get into that afterwards, but that's a next problem that we're trying to solve. So what is virtual real estate, and why do you care? That's a great question. Simply put, it's a way to own, I guess, the future of the internet. And so we kind of see like the metaverse is like this next evolution of the internet. And this may sound like like kind of a Facebook sort of take, if you will. But I see Twitter as the metaverse. I see Facebook as the metaverse. I don't think they're the metaverse we want. I hope they're not the metaverse we want. But obviously you have, Fortnite, Roblox. These things are kind of considered metaverse, and metaverse is becoming kind of a cringe word, if you will, right? So I'm hoping we come up with something better. But what digital or virtual real estate is really a way to own parts of this metaverse, and it's really the building blocks. And so it's right now it's land, but honestly I don't know if it will be land forever. It's to me it's something that it's a primitive that you can build on top of, that individual people can own, develop, and make into whatever they want. What's going to be successful is, I don't know. And then we get into this whole really, really exciting part of, well, what should it look like? Should it look like a video game? Should it look like real life? Should it look like just a forest? I don't know. And so that's another thing we can get into. But really, it's a primitive. It's an opportunity to have like I guess like an unconstrained revenue opportunity. And to me, it's an opportunity to build a business, a brand, an identity, whatever you want inside of this virtual box we call the internet.
So I totally agree with you. I would actually even take it a step further, and I almost see it as like owning not just I guess no, I guess you hit it, and I agree with you that it's owning a piece of the metaverse, right? And I actually don't think it's a cringe word. So I know some people have an issue with the term the metaverse. I think it's the right term. I just think we have a poor association of what it actually means, because
Mhm.
everything digital is a metaverse. Like the internet equals the metaverse, and it's no one person or group or project or company is going to build the metaverse. They're
Right.
going to build their own part of it, but everything collectively is the metaverse. So let's decringe it, because it's an important thing to like not have a poor association with, because if you do think of it poorly, then you're probably going to miss out on a ridiculous amount of opportunity, which is missing the whole point, right? So
Mm.
for the real estate part, I think of it as purely a function of utility. Let's say you have a crazy popular game with millions of people playing in it, and there's a particular area within the game's world, their own little corner of the metaverse, where the most people see it as they're playing the game. Well,
Mhm.
that has value in the form of impressions. Like a certain number of people are going to see that plot of land. So
Mhm.
purely from a utility perspective, what's stopping you from making a deal with an in-game blacksmith, where the blacksmith is like, I want to sell my wares and I want to be the best blacksmith in this game, and you like rent out your land to the blacksmith for them to build their own cool digital shop there, so that people in game will see that and be like, oh, I want to go craft, the armor of 1,000 whispers or whatever. And like they go to this special blacksmith. That's valuable to the blacksmith because they may be paying you some sort of in-game currency as rent, but then they can make so much more from servicing customers in this virtual world. I think gamers get it. Do you see, but I actually want to kind of ask about that. Who do you see as the people or the group that gets this at the highest level and really understands the value that this provides, knowing that my example was just one example and there are many other examples to prove the value?
Yeah. Right now, it seems to be traditional real estate people, believe it or not. The games in crypto seem to be more focused on play to earn and not necessarily on building a fun game. I do think the fun games are coming, but fun games take a long time to build, right? How long does it take to build GTA? Well, a decade.
Years,
how long does it take to make Call of Duty? They come out with one every year, but they start on it multiple years in advance, right? And so these people are just now seeing this. And so I think, over the next several years, you're going to see stuff like let's say Call of Duty on chain. And what does that look like? What does it mean? I don't know, but it's exciting, right? And so right now, what's easy is just replicating real life. And so, we've seen a lot of people develop. For example, recently you saw like Samsung built something in the metaverse. You saw some accounting firms built some things in Decentraland. And then we were part of the New Year's Eve Times Square event. I don't know if you saw that, but it was just a drop, like the exact same in New York, but inside of Decentraland. And it's a really basic game, if you will, but it's more an experience. And I mean, being inside of that experience on New Year's Eve was exciting. It was real. It was something. And I think that's these are the primitives of people starting to understand what they can do in these things. And then from there, we're going to develop. And so I think you'll see this real estate wave, and that's starting. Maybe it's like here, and it'll get up to like here, and then it'll go and it'll crash. I think after that, you're going to see a wave, a gaming wave, and the tide's going to rise, maybe 3 or 4 foot. And then you're just going to see this really big wave. And that'll be the gaming. And then these will be the first 2 iterations. Past that, it's hard to say, right? And I think that'll play out somewhere over the next 1 to 3 years, if you will. But it's already started. And I would imagine there's people with much more ambitious times. So it could be this year. And I really do think this is the year of the metaverse. I think this is going to be a fantastic, there's a lot I can't say, but this is going to be a really, really, really good year for the metaverse. And I think we're going to see, like I said, more traditional builds in the beginning, more gaming, things that you would think are actually with this word metaverse in the back end. But somebody has to start, and the easiest thing to start with is just do what you already know, right? And so I think that's where we are.
That's amazing. So I'm so interested that in exploring this concept of the existing real estate people are hopping into virtual real estate before anybody else. What are they buying up? Like, what are they seeing? How do they understand it? And what are they allocating capital to?
Yeah. So they want to build experiences. So these are people who host experiences in real life. There's, and I guess maybe this is a good way to get some background on like commercial. There's different types of commercial real estate. There's people who, buy buildings. There's people who buy venues, right? And so these are more people who buy venues, and they're trying to throw something exciting and just increase the amount of people who are experiencing the space, if you will. And they're trying to experience the space for themselves as well. I think honestly, like just brutal honest, I think they're seeing the ROI and going, I can't make that anywhere in real life. Let's get involved. For example, can I share a link in this anywhere? Maybe not.
Yeah, we can put it in the chat. Chat.
Cool. But if you go, like I tweeted this out last night, we have this price per square meter. And in Decentraland is the chart. And if earlier in 2020 or 2021, it was less than $10 per square meter. Now it's at about 60, which makes a single parcel about 15 grand. on median. So that's the median value. And so you're seeing like, a 12x over the course of 1 year, which as far as crypto goes, not fantastic return. But as far as real estate goes, like that's unprecedented. And especially if we're just getting started, like you hear a lot of people say, buying land in Decentraland is like buying land in New York in 18, whatever they say. I don't like that because I see it really as something completely different. And I think that's a very traditional way to look at the metaverse. That is what is going on in the metaverse right now. Like I said, like you see this real estate wave, but ultimately, I don't think you're buying New York. I think you're kind of buying Mars, if you will. And so we're buying this thing that we kind of understand. It looks similar to what we have. We can adjust the environment to make it very similar, but it's not the same thing. And it's just it's a next level that, I'll be honest, I don't fully understand yet. And I think anybody who claims they do, they're either incredibly smart and we should just give them all of our money, or, they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, definitely on one extreme.
Yeah,
one extreme or
it's
the other.
one of the two.
So, okay, so the incumbent real estate groups are coming in, they're previous venue owners. So I'm thinking festivals, casinos, anything that action happens and experiences happen, like maybe sports arenas, people like that. And so they're coming in, and are they trying to find pieces of land, virtual land, that they expect there to be a lot of foot traffic? And so they're just like, let me snap up as much raw virtual land as possible, because I expect this is where the people are going to come. And I feel like I can then either flip that or build or rent it out or build something on it later on. But it's really just like I'm trying to plant seeds so that I can see returns in the next 5, 10, 20, 50 years. Like, is it that kind of mindset? Or is it like, this is crazy, it's a bubble, but let me get in early and then just dump on people as soon as I possibly can? Like, what's the mindset of these people coming in?
Now that's a really smart question. I don't think they have any intention to dump. I'm going to be honest. I think these are people who, they see an opportunity and maybe they're willing to just rent it out or just borrow it right now. But the experiences they're building are things that they do yearly, monthly, repeatedly, like on a schedule in real life. And so these are going to be replicated experiences over time. It's not just going to be a one-off event, if you will. They're not that type of investor. These are people who are, they have a lot of money and they're trying to make, that little bit more. And so that ability even to make a 20% return to them gets them bouncing off the walls. And so like, the 12X that we've seen with Decentraland land, that they've never heard of it. Right. And so it's a new opportunity, but I think they still have the same mindset of play it slow, think about it. A lot of them are really struggling right now to figure out, what do we do when we get past Decentraland, right? What's next? I think, Somnium space has serious potential. And I think a lot of people undervalue it. Being brutally honest, I have Somnium land, no shame, but yeah, I think crypto voxels will also be exciting. But I mean, there's a lot of metaverses out that really worlds is the term I like to use. So you have the metaverse and you have worlds within that. And so there's a lot of worlds coming out that these people, I think it's going to blow them away. And so I think they're going to get this initial drive and this initial like proof of concept out through Decentraland. And when it expands past Decentraland, I think is when we're going to get really, really exciting. And when we get to that point, the bubble people will start showing up. But right now, it's people with very sober minds who are like, let's build something that lasts, that we can do this year, that we can do better next year, that we can kill the year after. And so they're long-term playing it slow. They tell me I need to sleep more. So it's, it's fun, but it's they're slow players, if you will.
Well, a lot of times that's what it takes, is smart money to really like take the time to understand it and play it slow and ramp up over time, because they're just not like, they don't have 12-minute time horizon.
Right.
They have like a 50-year time horizon. And so
Mhm.
like it seems like these are really smart people and smart groups that are getting into this really, really early. And they
Mhm.
know what they're doing IRL, and they're just trying to replicate it.
Yeah.
So what do you think will be the tipping point for when it moves from that? Because I think I heard you say before, it's going to be this group's going to kind of dominate for a little while, but then gamers are going to figure it out. There's going to be a gaming real estate wave beyond what's already happening, and then eventually, it might go into bubble territory, possibly. What do you think is going to be the catalyst to move from like the existing group that's participating into the gaming group that's going to come as part of the next wave? Like what's going to be the shift to get us there?
Yeah. So I'll be honest, I don't 100% know what the shift is or really even feel comfortable calling it, but I have a really, really, really good feeling that sometime between now and June, somebody's going to make something in the metaverse that draws in like a serious gaming crowd. Maybe it gets right now, if something got 1 million users in 1 month, that would be huge.
Yeah.
And so like the average foot traffic for Decentraland hovers around 1,500. Recently, it's gone up to about 1,800. That seems to be holding, which is really, really exciting. But I mean, their servers are really only built to handle about 10,000 at a given time. So whenever we get to the point where you can't log into Decentraland because there's more than 10,000 people trying to visit this one game, I think that's going to happen this year. And I think when game makers see that, it'll probably terrify a lot of them because they don't understand it. It's scary. They're making billions of dollars a year. Would they change anything? Right? Like Call of Duty, for example. I've had to stop playing the game except one every couple of years because it's the same game every single year. And especially when they went into Battle Royale, yikes. But the slow development, I think, is going to be really exciting. And so the catalyst, I guess, if you will, in my opinion, will be that one really exciting game. And I think you're going to have a lot of experiences that come that incentivize these larger players get into the something that I really haven't touched on yet is I think these larger players are
Wait, you cut out for a second. The larger players are what?
necessary. I think a lot of people aren't necessarily the biggest fan. Oh, Samsung entered the metaverse. Right? Well, you could have Samsung enter this open metaverse that you can own a part of, or you can have Samsung go Facebook's thing. Which one do you want? And so I do think there is like this level of maturity that needs to set into the Web3 community of like people are old school, they're big money, they're not necessarily the biggest believers in what we believe in, but if we don't partner with them, they're just going to partner with Zuck. So they're going to do it regardless because they're trying to run a business. They're trying to feed their families, right? I mean, these are not bad people. These are regular people who just maybe understand the world a little bit differently. And so I'd say the metaverse right now is maturing a lot of Web3, like the normal, the I guess the masculine urge to respond, have fun staying poor or something like that, right?
Right.
So we can't really have that anymore. But I think these players are incredibly necessary in setting that like, hey, we are going to try to invest $100 million. It's going to take time. We're going to do things that people don't like. We care what you think. We're still going to do it. And I'm so excited that they're willing to this open metaverse because that to me is like wait, you're interested in Decentraland? What? And then you get into the conversation with these people and they want to know all these metrics. They want to know who are the people buying by, what's the foot traffic, how long is somebody showing up, what's my customer segmentation, and this is data that we do not have. And so that's what we're working on right now is trying to get that data to these people so they can understand these larger scale investments and how that plays into, say the economy of Decentraland. Like if you buy up 5% of the parcels in Decentraland, what does that do to Decentraland? If you throw a huge event in Decentraland, does that keep people coming back or do they just show up and they never come back? These are questions we're trying to answer. And it's going to take, so I'm happy that these people have a lot of money to spend.
I actually agree with you completely. I think it's foolish to be like us versus them type
Hmm.
of thing, because if the whole idea of Web3 is to rebuild something from the ground up, and the whole point of crypto is to free us from a, a legacy system that no longer serves the people, why would we not want to still bring over all of the people and bring over all of the resources and
Hmm.
just have it be like plugged into a better system of operation? It's like you don't build a new operating system and then say, oh, fuck everybody else that's not using this, because
Right.
then you have no users. Like,
Right.
you want to help them upgrade to the new system. So like that totally makes sense to me. And there's absolutely, like, I've been terming it like a metaverse holy war right now, between like Facebook trying to take a what seems like, and we don't know yet, we haven't fully seen it, but what seems
Right.
like more of a walled garden approach. They're just trying to redo Web 2 and Web 3. Like, they're trying to reskin but do
Hmm.
the same thing, versus like what I think a lot of people who are earnestly trying to grow and build Web 3 are like, let's build this really cool open source metaverse, like the good parts of Ready Player One, not the dystopian IRL part, but like the
Right.
really cool idea of the Oasis, except the Oasis is not owned by one company. It's just like all of us coming together to build really cool technology and really cool things and exist in this new digital realm.
Hmm.
But of course, we're going to need everybody to come over. Of course, we're going to need all the resources to come over. Like, it's just inevitable. So it's interesting that you have this perspective from a data perspective, because I think data is one of the most valuable resources on the entire planet. I know you're probably a little biased because you do come from a data science background, but I think so. I think so too, and I think it's almost irrefutable that data is one of the most valuable resources. How do you see the logical conclusion of, well, we need to have data to make better decisions? At the same time, we don't want to run into issues like privacy issues, and there is a line. How do you think about being a steward of data and being like a almost like a guardian of data, and but still using data because we need to use it, but then also being cognizant of some issues from Web 2 that we don't want to replicate in Web 3? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a tough question. I'm gonna have to take a second.
Totally.
I'd say the most important part about the data is avoiding targeting individuals. I think that's probably it, because a lot of what Web 2 does is it targets you, the individual user, and then pushes you into a bucket. They figure out, what manipulates you, good, bad, otherwise, to engage with the platform the most. And I think instead we should be focusing on what people enjoy doing, and not necessarily what keeps them hating everybody else. But really, I think more important than that, it's the personal, private data. So like your name, anything that would get doxed, right? And then having access to the data. I think users have to have access to their own data. I think if you're collecting data on somebody and you're not offering it back to them, that's kind of cringe, because it's like it's their data. You can use it to improve your product, and that's great. And they're probably comfortable with that, but they need to know what you're collecting on it, what you're collecting on them, why you're collecting on it, how you're doing it, and they need access to it. And I think that's just not, those four things are non-negotiable. And past that, obviously, avoid personal information, avoid personal targeting, avoid trying to manipulate people. Period. Like that should just be the end of the sentence. Is avoid trying to manipulate people. And I don't understand why that's so difficult, but I mean, it's obviously profitable, right? And so I think that's what you see a lot in Web 2. But I think what Web3 allows us to do is, if you're being manipulated, just switch sites. Like, you control your own data. You control your own data. People can do whatever they want with it, but I think Web3 puts people in charge. Really, it puts the end user in charge. And so I think that's probably the most important thing to remember.
I love that. I actually have a thesis here and I'd love to get your take as a data scientist.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're straying off of the virtual real estate topic, but I mean, this is it all comes back. It all loops together. So I actually think that data is the key to some sort of, and let's throw out all previous emotional associations to this term, just because I want to use this term just so everybody understands at a basic level like what the end goal is. But I think data is the key to providing universal basic income. Now, again, I don't want to associate that term with anything else anybody else has ever said about it. Here's what I mean by that. I think as a basic human right, all human beings should have room, board, like food, water, and shelter. Some like basic level of like education and maybe some insurance, but just the basic necessities. It shouldn't be that expensive for people, right? In order for people to gain this as a basic human right, which I believe we should have that as a basic human right, and the litmus test I use to determine that is whenever I have kids, my vision is to set up some sort of like how they say like a trust fund baby. Well, I want to create it to where the only amount of money that they get is enough to cover their basic expenses to take them out of fight or flight so they can focus on being creative. That's it. That's it. Now, if they want to come pitch me on a new idea, that's a whole different thing. But so on and so forth. So data, I believe, is the thing, and use of data is the way we can get to some sort of universal basic income. And here's how. Companies are going to use your data. They're going to use our data, and they should. It is a useful thing. However, whenever companies use our data, we should get a rev share on the revenue generated from that data use. How that's tracked, how you measure it, how you enforce that. I'll leave that to people much cleverer than myself, like yourself. But at a basic level, if your data is being used to generate revenue, you should get a piece of that because it's your data. And whatever number that is, whatever the fair split is, that split should go to people as a universal basic income. And then bam, we all have at least some sort of revenue stream that's coming in that's totally passive to us because it's our data and we deserve to get a share of the revenue being generated from it. I think that would solve a lot of problems. What's your take on that? Is it possible? And do you see Web3 being a way to accomplish something like that?
I'd say I'd start with is it possible? Yes. I think that yes. Is Web3 the way that it can happen? Yes. Is Web3 the way that it will happen? Hopefully. What's my take on it? That is interesting. It's a really, really interesting idea. And I think, I think the thing that you touched on that's the most important is getting people out of fight or flight. And I think that should be the goal. Yeah, I mean, I'm down. I'm 100. I'm down. Like, let's make it happen. But it's going to be difficult. I think the data is a very good start. I don't know if that can provide the full value that you're looking for, if that makes sense.
But it's a start.
It's a start. And I'm almost wondering Hmm. How do you think it's possible that data could provide the full value?
I actually don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but based on the ridiculous amount of revenues that we're seeing from advertising companies and the advertising industry,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably worth a shot to at least try
Yeah,
and at
100%.
least see what you can do. At least see.
Yeah, no, it's a really powerful idea. And so I think because of that, you're going to get resistance. But
Probably.
that's strong, dude. Like, that's a really good idea. I'm wondering why I haven't thought of that before.
Well, I mean, just at like a purely pragmatic level, right?
Mm.
Let's pretend I think it's good for the world, but let's even throw that out, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of problems on the planet that are currently not solved. We need smart people to take action in a big way to solve that.
Mm.
However, most of the world is not like most of the people in the world are not able to contribute to the world at the highest level that they can contribute because they're either completely fucking starving with like no electricity or running water and they're all like shitting in a hole and then that's running off into their water supply and it's just disgusting and awful. Right? How could they possibly try to solve a problem when you're in this level of destitution? You don't know where your next meal is coming from. We could have the next 12 Einsteins that are currently already living and ready to discover the next law of physics, but they can't focus on that. And there's
Mm.
no way that they're ever going to do that because of where they are right now.
Mm.
At the same time, it wouldn't just be the next law of physics. It would be like turning a significant portion of the population into productive contributors to the world in a really creative way.
Right.
How would that not help everybody? Like when everybody is able to fully contribute at the highest level, should they choose, you wouldn't have to, but people get bored of just like sitting around doing nothing. Like, the ones that want to contribute to be creative and actually help, they're going to do it regardless of whether it's for money or not.
Right.
Like just at that level, it's important.
So no, I think providing an environment where people can reach their full potential is the most important thing that we can do right now with the world.
Agreed.
There's a hell of a lot of subcategories to that. And that's a very, very high level statement. And it's something you would hear from a politician. So I apologize. But, I honestly believe like that's probably the most important problem that is going on in the world is for whatever reason, whatever environmental or data or personal or mental or physical conditions are contributing to that. There's a lot of people who are not able to contribute to their and probably a lot of that is personal. A lot of people dealing with personal issues that they need to explore and understand better. But I mean, obviously, the people you live around, the environment you're in, what's going on? Is it impossible to even make money? Are there even jobs? Are there any opportunities? Where's your next meal? Right? Like you brought up earlier, these are blockers, and they're really scary and large blockers. And I think nobody who has the power, I should say not the power, but nobody who has the competency and the ability to act in meaningful ways on these things is doing so. I don't know why, but it's interesting. And so I think your pushback might be a lot of the how does that benefit me, people who are currently in charge?
Well, so I actually think, to be fair, there probably are people that are trying that I'm just not privy to, and I just because I don't know everybody in the world. I'd like to meet everyone. I just don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have enough time in the day to meet everybody. I don't think. Maybe there's a way. I just haven't figured that out. But like, it's definitely worth a shot. It's definitely worth a shot.
Yeah.
So let's come back to the data idea, because I think data is at least a good start.
I think it's the easiest way to
And
start.
yeah, it's an easy way to start. It's well, maybe not easy, but the easiest,
Right.
right? Or like, conceptually the simplest to talk about, in a super
Right.
fun show episode of a show. But like, from the perspective of, okay, what's the end goal with that? And let's close the loop on that. And I know we're coming close to time, so I want to cover a couple other things.
Mm-hmm.
I think the goal would be like, try to get as many people as possible out of fight or flight,
Right.
and reasonably give people a reasonable floor of a starting line. What people do after that, if they do something and they fuck it up, hey, that's on them. Because I believe like a lot of where we are today is a function of the actions that we've taken, but it's a very different starting point from somebody who, like, as a kid, like, they just had food and they
Yeah.
like they grew up and there was like food that was given to them versus being starving. And as a kid, like, it's not, when you're like 3 years old, like, that's not your fault that you're in a situation like that. It may be, maybe other, but it's not your fault. Like, but that's not really fair to you. So at least some level of like a basic starting line of getting people, like, at least a floor of like, okay, basic necessities. Bam, we got our food, we got our shelter, we got our water. Okay, we can exist as a basic human being, and then everything else from there, that's up to the individual. Either run with it as you will or fuck it up as you will, but that's up to you at that point.
Yeah. No, and I think that's the best way to say it. So yeah, I don't think I can state it any better than that. So 100% in agreement.
Right on. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the data side of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
From the perspective of, it seems like, one of the huge value adds is giving people the tools they need to make good decisions when it comes to virtual real estate. Like, if I
Mm-hmm.
could just try to summarize it without butchering it too much,
That's our mission.
okay, perfect. What are the ways that you're actually going about doing this? And what are some of the rich sources of data that have been like the most helpful to you on that mission?
Yeah. So I mean, one very difficult issue is that the data in the game itself is very different from like the NFT data. And so one thing we're thinking about when we're evaluating these properties, if you will, is, what's actually going on the property. And I think one mistake that a lot of people have made, not necessarily because they think it's the best move, but because it's what's available and it's like that's the only move right now, is they're looking at the sales history entirely of these properties, and they're not looking at what's going on inside the properties. For example, like the first property I bought in Somnium Space had a building on it. I had no clue of that when I bought it. I didn't know how to get rid of it. I didn't know how to replace it. I didn't know how to upgrade it. There was just a building there, and I'm like, okay, I guess this is what I got. And over time, I learned that like you can build it, you can adjust it. But I'm still wondering, how many people are showing up? Do they like it? Do they not like it? Are they coming from other parcels, or are they just spawning directly into mine? What do they want to see here? Right. I think see here is a really interesting question that we're trying to answer right now. And so like with the New Year's Eve event, for example, a lot of people showed up, and that's public data, if you will. You can go pull the concurrent foot traffic of Decentraland. Like I said, normally, there's about 1,500. At times that night, there was 1,500 in just that scene. And so obviously it was a popular event. People showed up and they enjoyed it. And a lot of people came who aren't normally in Decentraland, right? And so you see that foot traffic go from 1,500 to 3,000. It's like, where these new people come from? Well, they didn't come from here, right? So they had to come from somewhere else. And so I think that is really powerful data, is how many people you can bring in, especially, where right now the market needs to expand. We need more users. We have to have more users. And that's one reason I'm so bearish on the NGMI have fun staying poor type mentality. Is we have a real opportunity with the Web3 toolkit where it is right now to just blow it out of the water and bring on, I think it'd be the year, web that like we're like, okay, we brought on people to the blockchain this month, right? And that just becomes the norm. And so that's the really important metric to me, is how many new people did you bring in? Once we get past that, it's going to be how long they stayed, more of like your traditional, I guess, website data, if you will, like kind of like a Google Analytics. That's boring. We've had that for a long time. I think the difference with Web3 is that data is going to be public, or at least our intention is to make it public. If nobody else, like we are, we're making it public. I guess that's a leak. Yikes. But yeah, and so I think having that retention is going to be the thing after that. But right now, it's new people, and the way to get that is to throw events.
Sweet. One of the folks that have been on the show before was the chief visual officer of Manticore, who worked with deadmau5 to do his totally rad concert and festival thing. And he was saying, because he has a whole game platform, and he was saying the interesting thing is that we're seeing events be the main driver of new traffic and the main aggregator of people. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you're kind of seeing the same trend here of like, mm-hmm. It's the events, it's the special things. You got to get people a reason to get in, and then you get people in that you've never gotten before, and then mm-hmm. you just hope enough of them stick around to where it was worth it to do the event in the first place. So that's really interesting.
And I should add here is we've just built a tag for Decentraland, and we're building it out for other metaverses that allows builders, landowners to track this stuff. You just add it to the build, and then this is definitely a leak. We have this dashboard coming out. You add this tag to your build, then you add the dashboard, and you can say, all right, this is how many people showed up today. This is how many new users I brought into Web3 today. And that's the number I want at the top. But, obviously we have to make it make sense. And then there's like a heat map, and then there's like a time, and it's like they spent this amount of time in these areas, and it's like aggregated data, so it's staying respectful of that personal privacy, which obviously the most important thing to me and my team. But it's showing people like, you did this event, it either went well or it didn't. Try again. And so I think we have to have a lot of iterations, and the things that we see through those iterations, I think we're finally in a spot where they can get exciting. Like New Year's Eve, I didn't sleep. Probably 3 days leading up to the event, and then I fell asleep at 10:30 p.m. Pacific because I'm like, all right, New Year's is over, and then I crashed so hard. I think I slept for 2 days.
Wow.
But it's having that tag that we've just come out with, I think is a first step in the right direction, hopefully.
So I'm trying to picture that and really understand it. Is this a functionality where, like, let's say on, you're selling a piece of land on, some marketplace, mm-hmm. and you can have, like, as one of the properties, average number of people who have viewed this per day. Yeah. And then, okay. And so it can like sense basically when people were near it or around it and close enough to count as an impression, if you will. Mm-hmm. And then, okay, that's fascinating. Oh, that's going to be a game changer, dude.
We should follow up about it in a couple of weeks is all I can say.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
Stay tuned to the charts and stuff that we release in the next couple of weeks. That particular thing we're building out with partners right now. And so it's really under locks, and that's kind of all I can say about it. But yeah, Decentraland first, the rest later. And it's going to be, this is the year, man. This is the year.
I love it. Well, Winston, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. This has been a fascinating conversation, and I appreciate you doing everything that you do and taking some time out from everything that you do to come talk about it. So thank you very much.
No, thank you so much, Ben. I mean, this was the most fun that I've had in weeks. So,
awesome.
I really enjoyed the work that we do. I would do it for free. If my company lost funding, I'd still be here. But it's conversations like this that make it all worth it. And so I'm incredibly grateful for you for the opportunity, for having me on. And I mean, you followed up with me, I think, twice over like the last couple of months. And so really respect the work ethic and the effort that you're putting into this, because somebody has to do it and nobody was. And so, like super, super grateful to be a small part of it. And hopefully you'll have me back one day.
Absolutely. Anytime. Well, you're the man again. And to everybody watching and listening, y'all are also the respected mans and womans. And appreciate y'all and look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Take care now.
Cheers, everybody.